Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Al-Ikhlaas Academia Library Ladies Terrace Women's Day event. My name is Shahana Mia, and I'm your host for today, as well as the host of the Ladies Terrace. And that's a platform that we have in terms of addressing pertinent issues and contemporary issues regarding women in our society. What we're doing is we actually encouraging women to be able to look at their status and uplifting and enhancing that for them, because we do believe that the woman's status is pertinent and her development is actually extremely important in society. So it's very apt for us at the Academia Library to be launching our first event for our Ladies Terrace today as Women's Day, and it's very exciting for us to be doing that. And I think also to recognize the contribution that some of our female authors sitting here behind me have contributed to the writing fraternity in South Africa as well. So just a very warm welcome to you all, to those of you that are sitting over here in our cozy studio. And also we want to welcome our guests that are viewing us online across the globe on our various social platforms as well. Before we go into our program, we're going to be starting with an opening dua, and we're going to be asking our brother Mahbub to come through, please, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم افتح علينا بالقرآن العظيم واجعله لنا إماما ونورا يسعى بين أيدينا يوم الدين اللهم زدنا علما وارزقنا فهما اللهم زدنا علما وارزقنا فهما اللهم زدنا علما وارزقنا فهما واغفر لنا ذنوبنا وذنوب والدينا ومشائخنا وجميع المؤمنين أجمعين ربنا يسر ولا تعسر ربنا تمم بالخير وأنت الكريم الميسر اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما الحمد لله على كل حال ونعوذ بالله من الشيطان برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين رب اغفر لي ولوالدي آمين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم بفضلك دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحية فيها السلام وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Ameen, thumma ameen. Jazakallah so much for that opening. So happy Women's Day to all of us women out there. All of us are women, some of us are mothers, but the essence of being a female is important, and we recognize that within our society. Women's Day celebrates the strength of us and the resilience of us as women, as well as our contribution to society and our country at large. So this month is an opportunity to pay tribute to the generations of women who have really just struggled through laying the foundations to be able to allow themselves to make progress and to empower themselves and leaving a legacy to other women that come after them. So today at the Al-Ikhlaas Academia Library, we found it befitting to be able to honor the women in literature. Read, recite, or seek knowledge. The term Iqra, as we know it to be the first verse revealed in the Holy Quran. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to call upon our chairman of the library, who passionately, dedicatedly is expanding this message of Iqra. Please help us welcome Dr. Ilyas Parker.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, Moweni, and it is my pleasure to extend a passionate, warm welcome to one and all. Just a disclaimer, I think Women's Day should be more than one day a year. At least we'll have more days to spend in the company of such wonderful, beautiful women. Today is important in the history of Academia Library for it's a culmination of a number of ideas, a number of perceptions that we had that is coming to fruition. One such perception was the launch of our multimedia studio. Alhamdulillah, that has materialized, and today the next step is for us to recognize that stalwart member of our community, and that is our females. And we are grateful that we are in a position to actually honor some of those that are so diligently responsible for what we see in this library and for what happens in this library, and for giving life to that first verse of Iqra that Shahana referred to. I always say that that verse is actually a declaration of war on ignorance. And it's a declaration of war not just on the ignorant, more so on those that sit with the knowledge and don't disseminate that knowledge. It's a war on the ignorant as well as those that sit with the knowledge and don't disseminate it. Nevertheless, talking about today, there is something very increasingly profound about celebrating Women's Day in South Africa, and I'm sure elsewhere in the world as well. Because we are in the midst of an era where the definition of a woman is part of contemporary consternation, discussion. It's in really a contemporary contestation of ideas, as well as where gender ideology is either an affront or it is a rallying call for advocates. However, fortunately, there seems to be a vague middle road, a middle ground in this entire discourse. It is in this context that the Academia Library decided to celebrate Women's Day and acknowledge and honor women writers, particularly those that hail from the Western Cape. But at the same time, I have to say that at the Academia Library, we do espouse and we do intend to uphold basic traditional Islamic values in this regard. But at the same time, I have to stress once again, we are also a forum for open discourse. And it is in the spirit of this open discourse that we welcome some of the leading women writers that hail from the Western Cape and that come from different diverse backgrounds. The Academia Library, it offers a space for the production of knowledge, for the nurturing of creativity, ideas, and it is our fervent wish that today's endeavor will primarily and essentially focus on taking those creative ideas, sharing it with one another, and at the same time, enhance and encourage emerging new young writers. I have to say that we were very astonished at the exceedingly positive response that we got when women responded so positively to the idea of being recognized. Writing author women I'm talking about, to be acknowledged on Women's Day. Needless to say, we were also astounded that there are so many female writers that we didn't know before. And to that end, I want to say that whilst today's program is no means the end of it, I'm sure there's clear indication that there needs to be a follow-up program with this in mind. And it is our fervent wish once again that we will seriously consider, particularly with the success that we're contemplating today's endeavor will give rise to. Very briefly, once again, this is an open library. It is a library for all. It provides, or it intends to provide for the needs of all people across all ages, across all genders, across all ages. It's a library particularly designed for the former disenfranchised in mind. It's a library that wants to see, address, and provide for the needs of those that don't have the privilege of having high-tech facilities available. It's a library that intends to bring people in from the township areas to use this facility. It is not a privilege, it is their right to be exposed and to be at the helm of a facility of this kind. Once again, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to extend a very warm welcome, and excuse me for my back, to Najmanisa Musa, as well as my sister Fatima Esop, and then I've got this young lady sitting here, Sindiwe Magoma, and Professor Sadia Sheikh, as well as Sister Johadin. It is you people that inject life into the dreams that we espouse at the Academia Library. It is writers, it is poets like you that make us want to continue to do what we do. And to end off, I want to say that besides being a library for all, I want to call upon you to make sure that you spread the word that this library is a facility for the community, by the community, and every person has equal right to use every facility in this library. It's a free facility. I think there's a 50 Rand admin charge for your first card when you come. I consider that as free, but if anybody doesn't have the 50 Rand, we are obliged. With these few words, I thank you, and I welcome you to enjoy, sit back, and on this post-Ashura day, make sure that you enjoy what promises to be an uplifting and absorbing morning. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that. Another welcome to Professor Aslam Fattar. We're very privileged to have you in the audience as well. So let's start with our program, and what we're here for is to be able to listen to some of these very aspiring ladies that are behind me. The first recorded attempt for women's writing and contributions to that was in the 18th century, and it was written by men. So I think it's very appropriate to have women writers up here that have contributed to our society, that have just imbued things for us, for our children, for generations to come, to be able to just read stories, narratives, to be able to learn from experiences, academic experiences, or the layperson as well. So today we invite you to witness, to appreciate, to value this art of communication in imparting knowledge by these ladies. We hope that you leave this event feeling inspired and encouraged by the essence of some of our well-known female writers. So without further ado, I'll begin to acknowledge each of our special guests. They've been asked to share a little about the essence of their work and the source of inspiration for them. We've asked them to also comment on forthcoming writing and perhaps send a message of encouragement to inspiring writers. In 2006, due to health issues, she made the decision to leave her profession as a town planner and focus her energy and time on her growing family. Online courses and distance learning enabled Silwa Isaacs Johadin to self-publish her first Islamic activity book in 2010 as a means of helping her children to build a good Islamic identity. In 2019, she completed a course with the UK award-winning author Naima B. Roberts with the aim of learning to write picture storybooks, particularly for young Muslim children. She has some experience in editing and proofreading as well. To date, Salwa, a mother of 4, ages 15, 13, 12, and 8, has completed 5 picture books, 4 of which have been accepted by the international publishers, and she even manufactures her own range of Islamic educational jigsaw puzzles. So please help me welcome Silwa Johadin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All praise and thanks belongs to Allah Most High, and peace and blessings upon our Master Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has said, Whoever does not thank people has not thanked Allah. So I'd like to express my gratitude and appreciation to the Academia Library for today's invitation and acknowledgement of my work. It is indeed an honor and pleasure to share this platform with so many esteemed individuals. No man and no woman is an island, so I also take the opportunity to thank everyone who has helped me on my journey. I am Salwa Isaac Shuhaidin, as you've heard, a children's book author, and I write Islamic-themed books. Storybooks have been a huge part of my life since a very young age, thanks to my parents. My siblings and I were regular visitors to the library even before we started school. While we devoured every available book on the shelves, my father ensured that we had the latest Islamic books at home. And while the mystery, adventure, and the humor of mainstream books kept me entertained and evoked all kinds of emotion and imagination in me, it was a simple short story in an Islamic book that first revealed the power and the impact of the written word to me as a child. In a collection of short stories by Khurram Murad, Khurram Murad was the story of a man who decided to test the faith of his children. Sorry, I'm so nervous. He gave each of them sweets and asked them to eat it in a place where no one could see them. When he questioned them afterwards, each one answered about a secret place where they had hidden to eat the sweet, all except one child. And no matter where he went, he was always aware that Allah could see him. So he did not eat the sweet. And the sweetie monster in the 8-year-old me could not believe that he did not eat the sweet. I was so impressed with this young character who was so aware of the presence of his Lord that there and then, as a young child, I felt a need to change my life to become like him. I can't control. I feel I'm fine. I can't control. No, I'm fine. I just don't know how to calm it down, but I'll carry on. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I've carried this story with me amongst many others throughout my life, and without a doubt, it is this type of inspiration that has led me to pick up my pen and attempt to inspire other young minds to grow and improve themselves. Other inspirations at the start of my writing journey include other Muslim authors such as Naima B. Robert, Ruxana Khan, and Idris Shah. They were my first introduction to Muslim picture books as an older person. And there are so many more influential writers on the international scene these days, the majority of them being Muslim females. My first few attempts at becoming an author were not successful. 3 manuscripts were rejected by local publishers. I later learned that the writing style that I adopted would only capture a local readership and that I needed to write in a more universal manner. A bit disappointed, I turned away from storybooks and went on to self-publish an activity book to help my niece who was struggling to learn her Arabic letters. And to my surprise, the book took off locally and is still in use across Cape Town 10 years later, alhamdulillah. I turned back to storybooks 7 years after self-publishing my second activity book and produced, I could say, 4.5 picture books. I didn't finish the last one, under the guidance of coaches. I felt this was something that I really needed to take forward, and I decided to invest in, coaching. 3 of these, as you've heard, were accepted by an international publisher, plus a 4th book that I wrote during the lockdown. These books have started making their way into the world recently. The first one is called Tittle Tattle Talia. It's a book teaching children about the harms of gossiping, and this was released in June 2022, and it has not yet made its way to the Cape Town stores, but it's out there. Then there's the Call to Hajj. It is earmarked for release next month, inshallah. And then I have Come to Pray, which is being illustrated as we speak. The 4th title has not yet been through the editing process, so there isn't a finalized title that I can share with you yet. Picture books take a while to be produced, so while my books are making their way through the pipeline, I've taken a 2-year break from writing to focus on my Islamic studies. I'd like to inspire other women to write for children as well, because writing is an enjoyable and it's a rewarding activity, and it does require some acquired skill. You know, women can use their knowledge, their life experiences to guide and inspire the next generation, because words are powerful and can shape the lives of others. And like my writing coach always reminds, every single person has a story to tell, regardless of your situation and your background. You don't have to be like me to leave your job or your career to write for children. There's the doctor who can inspire healthy living, the lawyer or the law enforcement worker who can inspire good citizenship, or the teacher who can share conflict resolution or problem-solving experiences through stories. There's also the mother who wants to teach a child the religion or good manners in general, who can inspire others as well. So the possibilities are endless. The sky is the limit. A good book or an influential story, words that can touch the hearts and minds of the young ones and shape their future, can be a beautiful legacy that you can leave behind. I thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Beautiful. I think you reminded all of us to breathe, me included, you know, so thank you for that. Really, really inspiring and wonderful. I want to call up Hina Kadri Parker to help me to be able to just award Silva with the plaque through Academia Library. Okay. I'll just read it out to you here. It's a beautiful plaque. Okay. And it says, Al-Ikhlaas Academia Library, the library for all. On the occasion of celebration of National Women's Day 2022, Academia Library recognizes with honor the contribution of Silva Isaacs Jahadin for her seminal contribution as a South African woman writer, whose work is recognized for contributing to relevant discourse. Signed by Dr. Ikhlaas Parker as the chairperson, bestowed in Cape Town, South Africa on Tuesday, 9th August 2022. And at the bottom, it's got read in the name of your Lord, the Quran, chapter 96, verse 1. Okay. The importance of telling one's own story is depicted in the African proverb, until the lion can tell its own story, the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. For a long time, African stories and realities were told by colonizers in ways that painted a picture of Africa as backward and uncivilized. It is for this reason that many literary scholars tell the story of apartheid through personal autobiographies as they lived it. Our next recipient is originally from the former Transkei region. She then grew up in Gugulethu in Cape Town. She worked as a domestic while completing her secondary education by correspondence. Dr. Sindiwe Magona graduated from UNISA and earned a Master's of Science degree in Organizational Social Work from Columbia University. She's published 2 autobiographies, one being her own, it's called To My Children's Children, 2 collections of short stories, 4 novels, poems, as well as plays. Some of Dr. Magona's accolades include recognition for her writing that addresses social issues, promoting the isiXhosa culture and language, a Lifetime Achievement Award for contribution to South African literature in 2007. In 2011, the Order of Ikahamanga, a presidential award and the highest of such in South Africa, and a joint winner of the Mokodo Award with Nadine Gordimer. Please help me welcome a very accomplished writer, Dr. Sindiwe Magona.
Dr. Magona forgot how to grow. So you'll have to lower this a bit. Thank you. It is still morning, hey? Yes. Morning, everybody. And thank you for having me here. I am really honored to be here. And I have found a teacher for writing. Believe me, I'm going to be after you. Before I start about my own journey, I'm going to leave this, the address of where to get this is free of charge. I was at the launch of this book on Monday. Was it Monday? Last week sometime. My memory is not there. Very near here, Krombom Road. And the first half, all the illustrations about were done by children. The first half is Madiba's words on children. The second half is about, it's told people who are called children's champions, but it's all about children. It's a good book to have, so the people who put it together are giving it free of charge. Go get it for yourself. I write not because I am a trained writer. Part of the journey for me was not anger per se, annoyance, let's say annoyance. I'm trying to be very gentle. Annoyance, provocation. There was a time during Black consciousness. I wasn't in Black consciousness. I was busy doing other things. I won't get into it, read my books. But I knew about Black consciousness. It freed us from a lot of things. But one of the complaints was, why do white people write about us? I thought I was educated then, don't laugh. I wasn't, but I believed I was. I had what was called JC, and a 2-year teacher training, only available to people classified Bantu. You could teach without matric. I was a primary school teacher. And it occurred to me once I began thinking in my mid-20s that complaining is like anger. It doesn't affect the person to whom you are directing it. It just eats you. It doesn't matter how angry you are at someone. It does not affect them, especially if they don't care that much about you. I told you. I warned you. The only person you can change is you. The only action with which you can impact others is what you do. Our complaining about white people writing about us doesn't bother white people writing about us. It doesn't stop us writing about us. I'm not saying white people shouldn't write about us. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, why stop at complaining? Is it going to change anything? Do what's before you to do. Write about you. Well, I didn't start writing because I didn't know anything about writing. But years went on, and I got involved in what we used to call then working for peaceful change. I was too much of a bankbrook, and I didn't know how, because it was hidden, to join the underground movement. I'm not sure they would have had me. But I also believe that was for men. My brothers were in that. I didn't think it was my business. What did I know? But I was involved in talks and, that kind of thing, going to schools and preaching, but that led eventually, very eventually, to my writing. But even when I started writing, I didn't know what I was doing because I had no training in writing, which is why I started writing with autobiography. I have 2 books of autobiography. Part 1 is called To My Children's Children. It's not about my biological offspring. It was a book that I wrote for posterity. I didn't know it was going to happen now. I wasn't that smart either. I knew that all things changed with time. Apartheid would go one day. I didn't know it was going to be during my lifetime. But I thought in 2,000 years to come, people will wonder, what was apartheid? What does it mean? So, silly me. I wrote everything so honestly. Today people congratulate me because they say, it's so honest. Well, I didn't know you were going to read that and look at me. So it is honest by default, but I'm glad it is honest. Part 2 came out of part 1 because I wrote one big thing that the publisher then divided into 2. So I had to kind of hem off, finish part 1 and start part 2. Part 2 starts with the sentence, I was a has-been, a gooiweg, at the age of 23. Imagine your life being over at 23. That is why I write. To encourage, to wake up, to open eyes, especially of young people. Don't damage your life. Don't be in a hurry. You know, there is a time for everything. Be prepared, especially for parenthood. Make sure you are ready. Take one step at a time. Do not have children while you are still a child. Be ready. Be ready. Finish school. Have a piece of paper that says this is how you're going, let me put it mildly, how you're going to feed yourself. Usually I say how you're going to buy your own toilet paper. You know, how you're going to be independent. You know, enjoy your youth. Travel when you finish school. Go to France, go to anywhere, go to the United, go to anywhere. Travel, even inside your own country, the continent, and elsewhere. Enjoy your youth. You may have a very long time to live. If I'd known I would live, next year I'll be 80. Yes, my dear. If I'd known I would live to be 80, I might have taken it. I mean, your life is not over. Stretch it. Take one step. You know, savor it. You know, enjoy it. Taste it well. Don't hurry through life. Enjoy every moment. Don't want to be 30 when you are 18. Enjoy being 18. You won't be 18 again. Then the book came out. I'm pushing 50. I was 40-something, 47 when my first book came out. I then had graduated from Columbia University, came back, circled to get a job, got a job, then got the job I had applied for at the UN, which is where I spent the last 20 years of my working life, working for the United Nations at headquarters in New York. But this is also why I write. This is somebody who slept at a white home they needed a sleep-in maid. Good. They had nowhere for me to sleep except the garage. I'd take the job, madam, I said. I needed the job. I had all these children and husband had run away. Husbands run away, girls. And don't say you'll be smarter than I was and get a smart one. Even good husbands die. How will you look after your children? Don't have children until you are certain you and you alone, whether you are male or female, this applies to both, you and you alone can raise them, can afford them, because it may come to that. Can you look after your children if he, she is no longer there? If the answer is yes, then do it. I'm not going to bore you with all the books I've written. This is the list. I've written more than 120 children's books. My house can show you, tell you, that's the proof. Now, if I don't sweep, I'm writing. So, I have a perfect excuse for dodging housework. I write. And my life, when I came here, then I was invited to UCT, my first writers' conference. The last day there, a professor tells me something I knew but didn't know. There's knowledge we know, but we don't claim because there's no certificate that you know. Black women like me, the professor said, this is 1990. Since Bantu women started being published in South Africa, this is within living memory, in 1990, only 5 had been published. In 1990, only 5 women classified Bantu in South Africa had been published. Then he goes on to say, African women, not only in South Africa, throughout the continent, will write 1 or 2 books, fiction, if it's fiction, a novel, it's kind of autobiographical or plain out autobiography. Then they disappear. I made up my mind right there and then. I wasn't going to disappear. I don't know how to write, mind you. But I made up my mind I wasn't going to disappear. I was going to write anything and everything, whatever. I've written short stories. I've written one of my 2 books of short stories was considered in that list of 100 Africa's 100 best books of the 20th century. So you write, you try. If something in you says right, it's meant to be. Nobody is born with any knowledge. We acquire knowledge as we grow, through exposure. That professor told me something. I knew we didn't write, but I had not put it like that. I didn't know anybody who looked like me who wrote books. And that's one of the reasons we don't write. In my one book of poetry called Please Take Photographs, one of those poems is about why I write. It's called Statement. I write so that children in this country and in the continent, diaspora, who look like me, can begin to believe they too can write. You need to see people who look like you do things for you as a little child to dream of doing those things. You can't dream of things you haven't seen. Dreams are like madness. When I hallucinate, I won't see the same things you can see when you hallucinate. Dreams and madness are culture-based. Give children everywhere good dreams by doing the good things so they can dream them. My latest book came out last year. Provoked. When you read in a magazine, there's a picture. These magazines, community magazine, ours is called The Echo. There's a young 16-year-old sitting there with a baby on her lap, and she's being interviewed by a social worker. I tried to get pregnant, these are her words, when I was 13. 13, something happened. Oh, I can be a mother. She tries to be. Well, she must have succeeded. At 15, 16, she has a baby. You think that is bad? I used to drink before I got pregnant. What do you think she does after she gets pregnant? Stop drinking? After I got pregnant, I started taking drugs. After I wanted this baby to be deformed. We all know, if you didn't, South Africa is the leading country in the world. FAS, you know what that means? Fetal alcohol syndrome. To go and maim something in your womb because 340 or whatever amount it is too little. You want the 1,400 for the grant of a deformed baby. Can you believe it? I want to read something, then I'm going to. So I wrote this angry book. It's not angry. But I've been writing not to protest things, but because writers, as you said, ma'am, you write to encourage others, to open eyes, to warn. I thought I'm going to write a book. I hope this book gets to people in government, people with money, so that we can do something to stop it. Then I thought, no, I've been writing, nothing has stopped. I wrote anti-AIDS books, I wrote this, How can I make this book counter? I'm a dreamer. Somebody got me a scholarship. This is part of my thesis. I am graduating next month. PhD. My thesis is really simple. I'm not saying the grant should be stopped. I'm just saying that system is insufficient and it is anti-Ubuntu. You can't give somebody 300 rand a month for 18 continuous years. Where are they for 18 years? I was poor at 23. Thank God there was no grant for Bantu women. I had to find a way out of poverty. Poverty is not an incurable disease. I hate poverty. I hate poverty. And I feel we ought to come up with a system where people are helped to get out of poverty, not to be parked there for 18 years. Ask yourself, who does it serve to have someone there staying poor? Does it help them to stay poor? No. Who does it help? You don't need a PhD to figure out who benefits from giving people food. Come vote for me. Here's food. Here's a grant. Here's this. No. What about the children? What about these people who are cemented to poverty for all their lives? There has to be a way. We are intelligent enough. We have big hearts. Let's get together. Find a way. Make it happen. I hope this book gets people talking and doing the right thing for for ourselves. For as long as we have a country that's riddled in crime, none of us are safe. If you don't do it for them, do it for you. Even from a selfish point of view, we need to change the face of this country so that it is more wholesome. That's why I write. Thank you. I'm proud. Oh, you didn't tell me about this.
Absolutely inspiring. Thank you very, very much. I love the fact that an excuse for dodging housework is to write. I love that. The excuse for dodging housework is writing.
Nobody can say we are lazy.
Dreams and madness are culture-based. And live life, enjoy it, take it by the horns. So we've got some young people in the audience here today. You know, I hope all of us take that message through, because really, thank you very much. It was beautiful to hear that. Okay, so our next recipient, she's the Associate Professor of the Department for the Study of Religions at UCT. Her research is situated at the intersection of Islamic studies and gender studies. Professor Sadia Sheikh specializes in the study of Islam, gender ethics, and Sufism. She has published on gender-sensitive readings of Hadith, Quranic exegesis, and Sufi texts, religion and gender-based violence, amongst others. She has published a few books, one being Sufi Narratives of Intimacy, Ibn Arabi, Gender and Sexuality. Sadia is an active member on a number of community platforms for gender and social justice. She's mother to Nuria, and as she describes, is a feisty, opinionated 19-year-old woman, and Ismail, an impish, entertaining 14-year-old boy. And Sadia is wife to Ashraf Kaji, an academic, novelist, and fun life partner. Please welcome Sadia Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu nuru as-samawati wal ard. Thank you very much to Academia EDU, and thank you very much, Shahana. It's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be here. I love libraries, like you mentioned earlier. I have these, this image of libraries were places that I used to go to on a Saturday while my mother was doing shopping, and just always feel so much possibility around me, so many worlds around me, so much surrounding imagination and possibilities. So thank you for this library, for those of you that have put the effort into it, and to make it a space that's open for people. It's wonderful to come after these two very inspiring women. Stories are what create our worlds. Stories of anger and provocation, and stories of inspiration. And both those things are wings that we fly with. And so the work that I do is on Islam and gender justice, and I was inspired by my work, if I think about it in retrospect. I do work in tasawwuf, Islamic mysticism, and in terms of gender and the intersection of those things. The tasawwuf comes from me, from sitting at my father's lap, listening to stories of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jailani, who, for me, was a superhero. Those were the stories that got my heart moving, actually. I would hear stories about Sheikh Abdul Qadir, who was this person that would speak truth in the face of all kinds of danger, that would serve his mother lovingly. I mean, the one story that always inspired me was, he was on this caravan, and his mum had sewn a gold piece into his coat, and the robbers, there were these robbers on caravans, and they were searching for stuff, and they didn't find this gold piece because it was sewn in. And he was asked by one of these thieves, do you have anything else of value? And he said, well, yes, I've got this sewn in. And the man was taken aback. Why did you tell me this? I wouldn't have found it. And he said, in the way that your story was, there was things that, you might not know, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would know. So the idea of this kind of integrity, of virtue, etc., were things that inspired me, and were things that made me think about, what does it mean to be a human being? What is genuinely the most profound in us as human beings? What is the highest? And for me, Islamic tradition always provided those answers. And growing up on stories of Sufism was the questions of how we cultivated virtue as human beings. And that was the deepest source of inspiration for me. And then a lot of my other work was inspired by anger. I mean, growing up, like many of you, it's shared histories of deep anti-apartheid consciousness, of the idea of the anger at injustice. And that anger at injustice, in many of us, we've got these long histories of living in the context that we lived in, reflecting deeply on anti-racism. And many of us that are women took the same kinds of discourses around anti-racism to questions of anti-sexism and thought, yes, we're all united with our fellow, men and women are united in the struggle, but the questions of gender are not given the same kind of attentive attention necessarily. And so it's the anger against injustice that bred some of my work in terms of this area, this developing area of Islamic feminism that I work in. So one of the reasons I embrace the term Islamic feminism is that the deepest roots for myself, for many people it's different, but for myself, the deepest roots for justice for me, and I think actually not just for me, but for the Muslim tradition, are birthed and nurtured within a stream of love. That we are just because we love God, we love one another, we love, it is a creative impulse for justice. Yes, anger is something that impels us against injustice because we feel angry, but the deepest source, in my view, of justice is love. And that, for me, is something that I was birthed within the Muslim tradition in terms of tasawwuf. So the question of justice is, for me, deeply rooted within Islam, within the love for God and love for human beings. The work that I've done, over some years, has focused on a number of different things. I've spent, so growing up, and the anger against injustice was, also I did a lot of work with battered women, with women who were in abusive relationships, and Muslim women who had survived battery. And what I found was very interesting in those relationships were, when I interviewed these women, I was struggling with various aspects of the tradition, because I think we must all recognize that a tradition is a living thing, that we have histories in this tradition, and we have a breadth of positions within any one tradition. And so in Islam, like in other traditions, there were aspects that as a woman I was quite uncomfortable with. There were aspects within the tradition about ways in which, not just, that we needed to deal with historical realities in nuanced and complex ways, that we needed to recognize that there were parts of the tradition that were dominated by men, and by particular kinds of patriarchal thinking that rendered women other. And that made me really angry and unhappy, and also kind of militated strongly against my own understanding of Islam as being that source of nobility and dignity for every human life, irrespective of any other access of identity, that our human essence was the one that commanded and demanded our full dignity in human lives. So a lot of my work then was attentive to this. Interviewing these women, I found this very interesting reality that actually women that survived, at least the women that I interviewed, that had kind of survived these very violent marriages, had actually distilled an understanding of God and an understanding of Islam that was profoundly empowering. That in fact the things that gave them strength to survive these kinds of marriages were actually their faith. And so to be thinking about what is the lived experience of Islam, how do people negotiate in real terms, right? In real relationships, what does living Islam look like? Not just something we say women should be like this or men should be like this, but how do we live these ethics? And I found this very inspiring. And I also found that some of the more problematic ways in which women were told by certain imams or certain sheikhs, shuyukh, that, they should be patient, they should make more sabr, then their husbands will come right. Those kinds of deeply problematic things that enabled violence, that supported violence, were deeply problematic. And so I was now in search of saying, what were the ways in the tradition that we could look for to inspire ways of thinking about the human essence such that dignity and equality was central? And in my search, and of course being, kind of had a long history of engagement with Sufism, one of the most amazing thinkers that I encountered was this 13th century Sufi, Ibn Arabi, who actually was one of those thinkers that not only had these profound understandings of what it means to be a human being within Islamic tradition, that we are all the constellation or the combination of divine attributes. That's our nature, that's our essence, and all of life is to cultivate that and to bring that into a perfect balance and harmony. So that was the one aspect that was universal, but he also had some very radical, what we would consider today, very radical positions on gender. So for Ibn Arabi, for example, men and women can equally lead mixed congregational prayer. This is a 13th century Sufi who was actually very, very much in the mainstream. In his lifetime, he was a very accepted mainstream thinker. So today, people say, those are those radical feminists that are talking Western stuff. Actually, no. In the 12th and the 13th century, there were thinkers in the Muslim tradition that said, women can lead men and women in prayer, in mixed congregational prayer. The reason for that is that men and women have the same access to perfection, to kamaliyah, to perfection, to completion, have the same spiritual access. And so, and Ibn Arabi says, and for those people that say women can't, it's just basically saying it's just based on prejudice and stereotype, right, on their own opinions. So we have a history. So this is simply to say a lot of my work is inspired by retrieving, bringing back aspects within our tradition that have been silenced by certain authorities We have a very, very strong tradition which has a spectrum of positions. So I want to just say one of the other inspirations for me is, in the Quran, there is, of course, an entire surah called Mujadila. So anybody knows what that means? Surah Mujadila. What does Mujadila mean? The woman who complains, the one who debates, the one who disputes. There is a surah, an entire chapter of the Quran called The Woman Who Disputes. That's one of my major inspirations, the woman who disputes. What was she disputing? There was a practice of zihar in that time, where a man would say to a woman, this was a pre-Islamic practice, where a man would say to the woman, you're like the back of my mother. And when he says that, she's suspended in the marriage, and the whole marriage is on hold. You cannot have intimate relationships, you cannot, it was a very tense situation. It was a pre-Islamic custom. The woman went to the Prophet. The man had made a mistake, he was angry, he did this, but now their marriage was basically on hold, because that was the custom. So the woman goes to the Prophet ﷺ and says, this is the problem, please, can you do something? And the Prophet says, I'd love to help out, but actually, this is our way, this is the custom. And you know what Khawla does? She doesn't say, okay, Ya Rasulullah, I have to accept what you say because you are the Prophet of God. She says, no, Ya Rasulullah, I don't accept this. She disputes, the Mujadila disputes. She says, can you please go back and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Here's a woman, and the story always moves my heart to tears. Here's a woman who experiences injustice and knows this injustice from her own experience and says to the authority, the Prophet of God, I do not accept that you are complacent and the community is complacent with this injustice. Please go back and ask God. And when he goes back and he says, he doesn't say anything, he goes back, the women pray together with her. The community of women pray because they know that this woman is in a state of suffering. And then the entire chapter comes down about the woman who disputes, saying, God has heard you. So the model and the inspiration for me, and then this extremely unjust custom gets reformed. So there's a deep learning in this. In the center of the Muslim tradition is a woman who disputes injustice and doesn't accept the dominant authorities of the day, including the authority of the Prophet ﷺ, on a matter where she knows that the injustice to her is so grave that it is something that she disputes. And she takes her disputation to the divine, and the divine says explicitly, as a lesson not just to Khawla, but to all of us, that we should dispute injustice that is based in our experience. And so, very much for me, these are the sources of thinking through how do we become as a community better? How do we attend to all of these injustices in our community where young women are getting pregnant, all of the everyday injustices that we face, that we dispute, that we stand up, that we are never silenced in the name of tradition, that we mustn't be told a good Muslim woman is X when we know from our experience that there's something deeply wrong with that construction of a good Muslim woman. So these are some of my inspirations. The latest book that is coming out, inshallah, in October with Yale University Press is called The Woman's Khutbah Book. And the Woman's Khutbah Book is a collection of khutbahs, of Jummah khutbahs, Niqah khutbahs, by women from around the world, including a sheikha from Senegal, a sheikha from Mexico, women from Malaysia, Indonesia, South Africa, Pakistan, the US, the UK, all over the world. And it's an interesting thing because there are some incredibly powerful khutbahs that are done by women from across the world. But what this does is that it actually says, when we're thinking about religious authority, when we're thinking about knowledge, the production of knowledge, the production of knowledge is something that we have to learn from people in all spheres, that the experiences that people bring, including religious knowledge, mediated through something like a khutbah, is something that is available to us from various parts of the world through numerous women's experiences. And I think, and I'm hoping that what this book will also do is help us to rethink how we think in our communities about what constitutes religious authority, who's in charge, who gets to tell us what is Islamic. And how do we take that, and how do we find within our own resources, our own spiritual resources, and our own work within ourselves, our own work of self-purification and work, how do we discern the knowledge that each of us has been gifted by the virtue of being human, that we have within each of us the deepest knowledge of God and ourselves, and that this is what we need to cultivate. And that when we think about authority, we need to be thinking about authority in ways that are more inclusive, that are thinking, and that are in engagement with others, and that is constantly in search of a spirituality which recognizes the full dignity and the full humanity of every human life, irrespective of gender, class, color, of all of those other axes of difference. So my word of inspiration to people to write is that I actually don't always find writing that easy. Sometimes I have to confess, I find writing really, really hard. But that doesn't mean you don't do it. I think that the question is having a good practice of writing. One of my first teachers, Ibrahim Musa, actually, his brother is here. Ibrahim Musa was one of my first teachers at UCT. And he actually, when I was writing my second book, said to me, go and read Walter Benjamin, go and read other people and look at how they write. Look at their style of writing, because actually academics write in very boring ways. They write in boring ways that people don't understand often, right? And I'm also equally guilty of that often. But he said, go and read people that inspire you. And so one of the things you should do, and then he said to me, keep a little notebook and write down phrases that you like and ways of expressing, things that you would like to express more creatively. So, I thought that was very helpful, and it really helped me when I was actually writing my second book. I actually went to read people who wrote more poetically, who wrote more lusciously with language, who could taste language deliciously. And I think that you read for people like that and write down phrases. It gives you a way to think about language very differently. So that was one helpful tip that I'd like to share with you. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful to be part of this community and with these wonderful women. Assalamu alaikum. Hang on. One quick thing. We have a fantastic new master's, an MPhil program, Masters of Philosophy, starting for the very first time. It's the first Masters in Islam, Gender and Sexuality in the world, starting next year at UCT. And the applications are open. And I'd encourage any of you who are really interested in thinking about justice, spirituality, and gender and sexuality to think about this program. I have a bunch of flyers that I brought around, and it's starting next year. And the application deadline is in September. So I've brought some flyers around, and I'm just going to pop them on one of these chairs. And feel free to pick one up if you so desire. Thank you.
I love the way Sadia started out with the inspiration of being on her father's lap. And she spoke about libraries bringing out possibilities. And you listened to her, wow, possibility after possibility after possibility. So beautiful to hear that how anger is birthed within love, the stream of love, and retrieving aspects of history to find inspiration and grow from there. So there's so much out there for us to be able to just grab and take by the horn and allow ourselves to be able to work forward beautifully from there. Thank you so much, Sadia, for that. So Professor Najma Musa is a senior professor of law in the Department of Private Law at University of Western Cape and an advocate of the High Court of South Africa. Having been in academia for more than 3 decades, she's a National Research Foundation rated researcher, where she was also the first alumna to receive a master's and a doctoral degree in law. Some of Professor Najma's work include an article with Sheikh Munir Abdurraouf on the new framework plan for the legislation recognition of Muslim marriages in secular South Africa. She also recently authored a book that fills the gaps of South African Muslim history. It's called The Mystery of the Apostasy of Sheikh Yusuf of Makassa's alleged grandchildren. Please help us welcome Professor Najma Musa.
So, what do I say after all these profound speeches? I don't think I have much left to say. But I thought I'm just going to share some things with you. Some of my books. Okay, so now I'm left-handed, so this is the other way around for me. Okay, so it can do work like that. If I just stay disturbed you. That's fine. Okay. Shukran. Okay, that will be fine. Shukran. I'm also short. So, assalamu alaikum and good morning, or is it afternoon already? Good morning, everybody. I would just like to, I wish to express, like all the other women here, my sincere appreciation to Dr. Ilyas Parker and the committee for making this opportunity available to us female writers. It is a privilege for us to be here today. And also, we wish also to express our gratitude for your commitment to this beautiful library. As Sadia said, she spent Saturdays in the library, and when I was growing up, you remember we had those vans as libraries, you know, so there wasn't a real library, so it's such a pleasure to see this beautiful library in the heart of our community. So that is, I mean, after we've been relocated from so many places, at least here's a library in the heart of the community for people to access. And then also for the establishments of programs like these, so which nurture and create opportunities for engagement and learning and shaping of minds, young and old, male and female. So I just wanted to say that, and I was asked to talk for 8 minutes, so I'm going to keep to my 8 minutes because I talked the whole week, so I'm not going to be giving you a lecture today. So I was asked to talk about the essence of my work. So what is my work? My field of research is, I will carry on from where Sadia left off. I go into the practical legal field, so I tell you what your rights are. So my field of expertise, research expertise, is Muslim personal law or Muslim family law, which deals with marriage, divorce, custody, guardianship, succession, etc. And this falls within the area of private law, as opposed to public law, which is the Constitution, etc. And to date, I've written 4 books, okay? And I have 1 book forthcoming next year. So the first book is Unveiling the Mind, and I'm showing you a picture because I had to go scratch it out of my cupboards. It was called A Her Story, so it was a female perspective of the history, his story. Historical evolution of the legal position of Muslim women in Islam. So here it was about unveiling the mind and not necessarily your heart. So this book is special for me today because I see here Professor Aslam Fatah and his lovely wife Najwa Nuruddin Fatah. And they were the, when this book was launched, they were actually the guest speakers at this launch. And that was in 2004. And my son is sitting here, my youngest son, and he was a little baby and he was hiding under the tables. So there he is today, and I'm so happy that he came to listen to his mom today. And he said he had to give up his hike today, so he came to listen to his mom, so I'm very happy for that. And Sadia also wrote a critique on the book, so I'm just happy to have you here also today. So that is the first book. And that was in 2004, and at the time I was also the dean or the head of a law school, a very busy law school, so I had a very busy life, but I managed to write that book under very difficult circumstances. So the second book is also called Unveiling the Mind, but it's an updated version of the first book, and it is the legal position of women in Islam from a South African context. So I wrote it as a Muslim woman in a South African constitutional context. Okay, so it's an updated book, a second edition, and it was written in 2011. In 2019, I was also part of the, Muslim marriages are now a very topical issue. Constitutional Court had just given a judgment in June of this year, a month ago, in which recognition is now going to be afforded to Muslim marriages, finally, after so many years. And during all this time, I was part of that process of recognition. I was part of the bill process, so we have a Muslim marriages bill in place. It's not actually law yet because Muslim men and women didn't think it important enough to fight for it. And now I think it might be too late. But in any case, this was... in 2019, I co-edited a volume on Muslim personal law, It was called Muslim Personal Law in South Africa, Evolution and Future Status. It was basically a collection of essays written by judges and lawyers and academics, all on Muslim personal law. So it's good to keep this as a historical volume as well to show for the future. And then my fourth book, you know, we had COVID, lockdown, and I was reading a book one day on Sheikh Yusuf of Makassar. And in the book, the author said that the Sheikh's grandchildren had converted to Christianity at the Cape. Now, who is Sheikh Yusuf of Makassar? He was a Sufi saint. He was a Hafiz of the Quran. He was a Haji at the time, 150 years before the first Muslim at the Cape was to become a Haji, for example. So in other words, we're talking 17th century, 1600s, period of Dutch colonialism. Sheikh Yusuf was exiled to the Cape, and he died here subsequently. So the story goes that his children, his grandchildren, his daughter married the Raja of Tambora, and their children converted to Christianity at the Cape. And I found that very hard to believe, because I thought, this man, okay, look, people can convert to Christianity. It doesn't mean that people cannot become murtad. But I couldn't accept that or believe it. I wanted to research it, and that's what I did during the COVID lockdown period. And so this book then is a historical one. It's outside of my field of research. Here we see a picture of Sheikh Yusuf on a stamp celebrating his, he was celebrated in South Africa, and here's a stamp. This is the Makassar, the Kramat, that he lived and died in. And we see that this book was published in 2021, and this was actually a mystery, to try and solve this mystery. Was it his grandchildren? Did they convert to Christianity? So if you want to know the answer, you'll have to buy the book. It hasn't been launched formally yet because of COVID, but I'm gifting this to the library in any case, okay? So that was basically my works. And then, so yes, I basically wrote that purely for interest's sake, right? Because I couldn't believe that that was the story. So if any forthcoming works, I said, I have a fifth book that is due to become available in 2023, which is next year. It is a textbook on Muslim personal law. So while the court has given recognition to Muslim marriages, people don't know how to apply the law. So what are the consequences when your marriage is, you have a divorce? What must you do? So that is basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to be writing about the substantive Muslim personal law in all aspects of marriage, divorce, etc., etc. So that will also, like these other books of mine, they are all first of its kind books in South Africa. So it will be a much needed book as well. So I was then asked to say, what are my sources of inspiration? Am I a muse-inspired writer or a nose to the grindstone pen and plodder? I think I'm a bit of both. I make You have to convert inspiration to physical writing. Hence, once inspired, I don't stop writing. And my husband knows full well that when there's no food, that I've been writing. And there he's sitting as well. So yes, that's just jokes aside. I still have to do everything. Because my husband works in a hospital, long hours, and so there's no hope of him coming home to make food. So, okay, any advice to young aspiring writers? I'd like to just give you the following general suggestions to help anyone here in the audience who are now inspired to write and become a better writer. Like the other authors have said, nobody teaches, you're not taught how to write, you know. It is just one of those things that we do. Writing is not a full-time job for me. I have a full-time job. So writing is what I do when I have to steal time to write. So to write is by nature a lonely and a patient and passionate process. You have to work at it every day, even if only for snatches, at times in between everything else. I find for me what works best is early morning, before Fajr and after Fajr. Those are the times that I work at my best. And good writing is a germination process. Ideas grow like a seed planted and nurtured. It takes time to achieve clarity and write with clarity. So it's not easy to write. You can't just sit down and write, and you've got to do many attempts at writing. And reviewers are usually experts in their field. So when they criticize your work, you must accept it graciously and try to improve your work. Take advantage of it, and don't take it as negative criticism, right? It can improve your work. On the other hand, you don't adopt a defeatist attitude and accept rejection if you believe in yourself and your work, like Sadia was talking about, the woman who complained, and she complained, and her complaint was answered. So if you believe in yourself and your work, then and I wrote the Sheikh Yusuf book under very difficult circumstances because it's not my field. I'm not a historian, and there were people who were writing on Sheikh Yusuf. So when I said it wasn't his grandchildren, and I did research to that effect, it wasn't welcomed readily because I was changing the narrative. So I say that because some reviewers also have vested interests, and therefore their views may be biased. So you don't always accept everything everybody tells you. So that is just my few cents. And I'd like to thank you for coming here, and thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. Thank you very much.
It's lovely to hear how we've had an array of speakers and authors here, and bringing in Muslim personal law, bringing in your own perspective on life, and just applying that to books and trailing the way for us. Because like you said, many of your books are the first time for people like us in the layperson's field to navigate through law and legal aspects, which are things that really just impact us and affect us on a daily level, but we don't know where to work from there. So it's nice to have books out like these that will just be able to guide us and give us perspective that way. So we're going to be having a short interactive session. Okay, sorry. Okay. Program's changing a bit, no problem. I'm actually going to call up Dr. Ikhlaas Parker to do the introduction for the next speaker, because I think it's appropriate for him to take this segment as he is the chairman of the library, and he wants to do a very special honor to one of our guests. So Dr. Ikhlaas Parker.
Guys, I've got a disclaimer. I did say earlier that we should have more Women's Day so that we are surrounded, with more beautiful women. But, I didn't realize that I'm standing among such giants, or rather standing in front of such giants. But nevertheless, Prof. Musa, I was a bit worried, when you said that you don't cook, because I was wondering since I met Dr. Musa a couple of weeks ago, why has he lost so much weight? But I think your disclaimer covered that very, very well. And then before I start, can I invite Dr. Magoma here, that when you do have your PhD, can the Academia Library be afforded an occasion to celebrate it here with your people? Thank you. And then, and to Professor Musa, my distinct pleasure, and to Professor Musa, we offer to launch your next 5th book in the library as well. And in fact, while I'm at it, that goes for everybody that's going to continue writing. Consider the library. Consider the library a home for the launch. On a more serious note, often organizations are built on the strength of selfless individuals whose aims and objectives are largely promoting the well-being and the growth of communities that they continue to serve. Giving of their time, calling up hidden resources, and displaying a charisma and an elegance that befits the charitable personality are indeed qualities that is the golden thread that runs through their very being. This is one of giving of their time, giving of their experience, years of learning, and then to share these values with a no-holds-barred approach at all times. Advocate Fatima Esop and her husband Muhammad Saleh Salam are a husband and a wife team who epitomizes this very spirit of challenging to provide more, to give more, and to educate wherever and whenever they have the opportunity or the need to do so. It is this fortune of ours at the library that we could engage, interact, and benefit from this due in a manner that we have done for many, many a year. It is not easy to find the correct words that describe the power of these people. It is indeed fortuitous at the same time that they have had the same passion for reading, passion for literature, and a dying passion for the dissemination of knowledge in the manner that they have done since the last 15 or so years. We at the Academia Library will continue to bask in this light that they have shown and will always remember the unstinting support that they have given the library since inception, and more so with the launch of this library. Today, we celebrate Advocate Fatima's valediction as she departs for Harvard Law School in the US to further hone her skill and experience. We are proud to be part of this wonderful step she will be taking towards her and her community's growth. And we are confident that not only will she benefit from this experience, but that the world will be standing aside and notice this unique contribution that she is about to make. So in conclusion, we will not be saying farewell, but in the true sense, instead, we will say ahlan wa sahlan, bon voyage, and we await your safe return to our shores, armed with new memories and a fresh perspective of your chosen passion and path. I call upon Sister Fatima Esop.
Also short. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good morning to everyone here this morning. First of all, shukran Dr. Ikhlaas for that beautiful introduction for Muhammad Saleh and the kind words that you have said for Muhammad Saleh and myself, and shukran to the Academia Library as well. We have a very long partnership, alhamdulillah, and it's really been a pleasure being part of your the Academia Library journey over the past few years. Alhamdulillah, like the previous speakers, I must say I feel very honored to be in the presence of such amazing women. On the way here, I was telling my family, I'm not sure why I'm included, because these are phenomenal authors, and I'm just at the start of my writing journey. So really, thank you for including me in this amazing panel. Like many of the speakers before, my journey with reading and literature also actually started with my mommy taking us. We had the library in Athlone in Thornton Road. It was a small little library, and she would walk up to the library with us every second week, because we keep books for 2 weeks, but it would be often more than probably every week, because we'd get through our books quite quickly, and she'd walk us up to the library to get new books. And we were those children who, when it was lights out, we'd sit with the torches underneath the blanket, continuing the reading till they came to scold us to go to sleep. And so that was my introduction to reading, was the Athlone Library, but also I loved the Gatesville Library, the predecessor to the Academia Library at the Gatesville Masjid, because that's where I got exposed to Islamic literature, which I absolutely loved. And it was that love for reading and literature that inspired Muhammad Saleh and myself to start Timbuktu Books in 2010, because we wanted to display the beauty of Islam through literature, through art, through music. And that was the purpose behind starting the bookshop. And I see our lovely bookshop store manager, Uncle Umar, is here now. So that was the aim behind starting the bookshop almost more than a decade ago. And alhamdulillah, that was my journey in Islamic literature. But my journey in law also started many, many years ago, because like Sadia was saying, we grew up under apartheid, and I remember vividly various scenarios in my life where we were exposed to the injustices of apartheid. And at a very young age, I remember applying for a job at BP. My uncle worked there for 40 years or something, and I had to fill out the form, and they asked you, which race are you, white, black? And I said, I'm from the human race. And of course, I didn't get the job. But, and I remember vividly various scenarios in my life where we were exposed to the injustices of apartheid. And it's at that point that I decided I was going to study law and practice law, because I thought law could be used as a tool for change. And I believe that, I still believe that law is a tool for change. Whether you practice as a practitioner in South African law, I could see how law could be used to fight injustices, to stand up for the vulnerable and the disadvantaged of society. But it's the same in Islamic law as well. So after having studied South African law and practiced, I decided a few years ago to go and study Islamic law as well, because part of my practice as a practitioner, I'd many times come across women who were struggling in marriages, struggling with the divorces, struggling in matters of inheritance, and I wasn't familiar with Islamic law like I was with South African law. And that's when I decided to do a degree in Islamic law at IPSA, and it just exposed me to a whole new world of law, because I always thought it was just the laws just derived from the Quran and the Sunnah, and that was immutable. But I soon discovered the beautiful science of usul fiqh, which is the principles of jurisprudence, and our law is not set and immutable, how it's open to interpretation, and how actually Islamic law is actually quite flexible, and how the underlying objectives of Islamic law are actually justice, equity, equality. And this was very different to the way I understood Islamic law when growing up. And so this is why I decided to pursue my studies further in Islamic law. And I did a PhD on the intersection between Islamic law of inheritance and South African law of inheritance. And so the essence of my work now at the moment is I'm trying to understand we have the law in theory, like the Islamic law, but then we also have what's happening on the ground. The lived reality of especially women. And I often find in my practical experience as a practitioner that there's a disjuncture between what the law says and what women experience. We always hear about Islam gave women rights in marriage, in divorce, and inheritance. But when I was interacting with people, with women, I didn't see that manifesting in their lives. And so for me, it was important to find out how does one address this disjuncture. And then I ventured into an area, like Najma was saying, she ventured into unknown territory. I ventured into the territory of sociology and empirical research, where I eventually decided to do empirical research within the community to see what was actually happening on the ground. And so I did ethnographical research at the MJC Sharia Divorce Court to see what are women actually experiencing when they apply for a fasakh. Yes, the law says one thing. The law says you can have a khulla. The law says you can have a talaq tafweed. But do women know this? And is it actually being applied? And that I found was very interesting, because very often there's a disjuncture. Yes, Islam does bring about justice, the Islamic law and equality, but the enforcement and application doesn't necessarily manifest at that stage. And so one of my publications that has just come out is it's in a book called Islamic Divorce in the 21st Century, A Global Perspective. And there I write about my experiences in the Sharia, MJC Sharia courts, and what are the problems and the possibilities for improving divorce procedures, Islamic divorce procedures in South Africa. Similarly, with my PhD, we know that Islam brought about inheritance rights for women. And we know that there was a major transformation from Jahiliyyah to the time Islam brought about progressive laws. But how is that being applied on the ground? And that too is, I also undertook empirical research to find out what the gap is between the theory and the lived reality. And what was very fascinating for me also, once again, even in the area of inheritance, Islamic inheritance, we are generally taught that this is an area, everyone deals with marriage, Islamic marriage and divorce. In the area of Islamic inheritance, the position is, this is set in stone, there's no room for interpretation, it's rigid, the law, it's clear cut. But actually in my research, I found out that even in Islamic inheritance, there are different opinions by the scholars. From the time of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh had dissenting opinions to the other companions, and his opinions were sometimes what one would consider more progressive than the other opinions, especially in terms of the rights of women and their rights to inheritance. So this for me is the essence of my work, is trying to understand how Islamic law, which I believe is a system that advocates for justice, equality, fairness, how can it be interpreted and how can it be applied and enforced in a way that benefits society, but especially Muslim women who are on a daily basis see in practice are at a disadvantage. And so that is the essence of my work. And now, and also I believe very importantly, like Sadia also mentioned, sometimes academic writing is very inaccessible. People don't pick up journal articles, lay people don't pick up journal articles. And so for me what was important is disseminating the knowledge so that the lay people can read and understand what does the law say. And that's what resulted me working with Muslim Views in disseminating articles on Muslim marriage and divorce so that lay people can understand their rights and obligations in marriage. And similarly, when I'm going to Harvard now, part of my research project entails disseminating knowledge on Islamic marriage, divorce, and inheritance so that lay people can utilize, understand it, and apply it in their daily lives and not be so dependent on Muslim judicial officers or Muslim judicial bodies or the imam, because they are being provided with the knowledge that I've researched in my thesis, but in an accessible fashion that people can navigate in an easy way. So that is my intention, inshallah, my dua that I'm able to achieve that. Amen. And then in terms of inspiration, like I said, I'm very new at academic writing. It's only since 2018 that I've started, and social legal, empirical research is also a new area. And I too find it really hard writing. And Najma, my thesis has come back with certain corrections. So one has to have a huge amount of humility and to be able to acknowledge, as Najma says, there are those who have walked the path before you, and they review your work with the aim of trying to improve your writing. So that is very important, is be open to learning when you're writing from various sources. Don't feel that this notion of the imposter syndrome, that you're not positioned to do this. No. If you feel you have something positive and something valuable to contribute, then put pen to paper and be open to sharing your ideas with those who have walked the path before you and taking their advice. And of course, being committed, because it can be really hard and it can be very lonely. And so if you're not committed, then you're not going to be able to start. You might be able to start the project, but you might not be able to finish it. So it's very important to be committed and dedicated to whatever subject you've chosen to write on, and to see your projects to completion. So those are just some of the words of inspiration. The previous speakers have obviously given you far better tips. And so inshallah, I make dua that my writing journey continues and that I'm able to contribute especially to the community of Cape Town and South Africa with the work that I'm going to undertake in the future, inshallah. Shukran wa alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Thank you. Shukran.
On the occasion of celebration of the National Women Day, Academia Library recognizes and honors the contribution of Fatima Isop for her constant support, encouragement, and contribution to the work of the Academia Library and its impact on the community, and her pioneering research in the field of Muslim family laws.
So, okay. Jazakallah so much for that, Professor Advocate Fatima. So I'd like to call upon Rafika from the library, please, to help us out here. We just have bouquets of flowers for all our guests, and we just want to present that to you as well. So Rafika she's with your snacks. She's preparing your snacks and getting that ready. Can you join us, please, to hand the flowers? Thank you. While Rafika's coming up, I just needed to mention to you that we had invited two other authors who unfortunately weren't able to make it today. I just need to name them because we will be then, hand delivering their plaques to them. The first is Bernadette Muthin, and she called me at 2 a.m. this morning. Well, messaged me to say she'd taken ill and she wasn't able to make it. So we wish her well in a speedy recovery. And then we have Vuyakazi, I'm looking for the surname, Ngemtu. Who is a poet, and like I say, we will just hand deliver their plaques to them. But Rafika, perhaps Hina can help you to do the honors.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Shahana.
Can I have one of the available?
It was nice to get a gift, especially flowers and chocolates and nice things. I want to just, finish off the program now. And I think, firstly, just to thank everybody for... Okay, sure, no problem. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's not in my tradition to crash Women's Day programs. I might come off very badly. To Fatima Yasab, who I want to make this dedication, and I wanted to say, I told Ilyas early on, when I joined the family in 2011, and I wrote something, and Fatima Yasab did this. And since that day, I taught myself with her guidance how to write. Thank you. Thank you, Fatima. Councillor Sieberts, welcome. Aziza and Kauthar at the back, welcome. And I need to do something today, and I need to hand over some gifts to 3 women as well. So I'm going to call upon... Are you going to hand it over? Oh, I'm supposed to make the announcement. Okay, I'm calling upon Dr. Ilyas to do the handover. We're calling upon Rafika Phillips to come to... Where's Rafika? Can you come to the front, please? Oh, there we go. Rafika has ensured that she will give me grief when I join the Academia Library, and trust me, she does. She keeps me on my toes. There's always somebody in the background that keeps me on my toes. Thank you, Rafika. She wants to say a few words.
Pleasure. No, please don't put me on the spot. Please.
You in the library.
I just want to say shukran to everybody for being here, firstly, and for making the library what it is, because without you guys, we won't be here. So we just want to say a big shukran. And to the ladies and to the mothers, Ya Allah, Jannah really lies at your feet. So shukran. I'm so nervous. Boom.
Well, after that ball of nervousness, I'm calling upon Hina Qadri. There we go. Welcome.
I have to still say my vote of thanks, so I'll come again.
And then finally, we need to call upon Shahana. Shahana is the brain and the organizer behind the Ladies' Terrace. Welcome, Shahana. Welcome to our Women's Day program.
A few words. I'm not the brain behind Ladies' Terrace, but yes, I'm part of one of the amygdala, or what are the other aspects? Maybe the stem or something else. There's a team of us that work together on this, and it's been a journey for a good few months trying to put the Ladies' Terrace together. So today's been really wonderful for all of us to just see it into fruition, and we look forward to many, many more of these events in the future, inshallah. So yes, Hina's going to do the vote of thanks, but I just want to have a few parting words. And for me, the inspiration today was wonderful. When I read all your biographies, when I spoke to all of you ladies over the last few days, it just got different juices going. I am not a writer, but I thought, gosh, let me just try something. And the little tips of, doing it when different times of the day, or being inspired to be able to, whatever thought comes to mind, and putting it into perspective. And I think I realized that sometimes we don't know that there's dots within our lives. And if we join the dots, there's insurmountable possibilities that could happen from there. And it's only years later that we realize those dots mean something. So thank you each and every one of you for inspiring me. And I know it definitely would have inspired other people as well. So Hina Qadri Parker will be coming up to close the session, and thereafter we just ask you to, okay, fine. We ask you to then interact with the speakers during tea time as well. But I think, sorry Hina, before you're coming up, there is, sure, okay, please come through.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was not supposed to be here. Before I even start, I just want to say, I want to greet you all with the universal greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The reason why I am here is I was just Ubering my wife to the women's program. But I think that I cannot help by saying that I'm completely inspired here to hear. In fact, I'm even inspired to start writing at this moment. I think my wife is into research, but the reason why I've come up here is to say that I often get very angry at a very close friend of mine, Ikhlaas, because the only thing he does is to serve others. I'm not sure if Hina is going to thank him here, but I think even up until last night, at 11 o'clock, we came from a function, and at 11 o'clock he tells me, Ibrahim, can you go with me somewhere quickly? I said, Ikhlaas, where are we going? No, I just want to go and sort out the catering requirements for tomorrow. But anyway, even if you don't want to go with, you have no option. I'm just taking you. So you know what? I believe, Ikhlaas, I just want to say to everyone, you have put together an exceptionally good program, an inspiring program. And I think I would be failing as a friend. I think Ikhlaas has not only inspired me here this morning, he has been an absolutely great son to his mother. He has inspired me in that direction. He's a hell of a great father, a great friend, and a great guy to the community. I think we should all put our hands together for Ikhlaas.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I feel confident after listening to so many inspiring people before me. A warm and cherished morning to everyone present here and happy Women's Day. As the saying goes, all good things come to an end, and here we are at the end of a beautiful program on Women's Day. On behalf of Academia Library, it's a privilege to propose the vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of all those who have made this program very special and memorable one. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed authors for accepting our invitation and honoring today's program. We all are inspired by a great accomplishment, and we hope you continue to inspire young minds to reflect and call for change. I also wish to express my sincere gratitude to Advocate Fatima Isop and her husband Salam for your giving your precious time to be here today. Thank you, Fatima Isop, for inspiring and encouraging us with your words on this special day. We wish you health and happiness as you move towards fulfilling your dreams. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to Dr. Ilyas Parker for initiating this wonderful Women's Day program and for providing valuable guidance and support to make this program special and successful. I would also like to express my sincere thanks to Shahana Mia, the host of Academia Library's online program called Ladies Terrace, for hosting today's program with her adorable presence. Thank you for all the hard work and commitment. Further, I would like to thank our lovely audience for being with us this morning, and also the people who have joined us online through our YouTube channel. Our main aim to come together was to make women of past proud, the women of present inspired, and to provide the women of the future with vision. And your presence and support has made this possible. Before I close my speech, I would like to request you all to please tune into our ladies program on the 20th of August, hosted by Shahana Mia. I also want to thank our in-house technical team, Fahad Abdurrahman and Mahir, responsible for broadcasting today's function, media and academia, library staff, Umar, Rafika and Fatima for their cooperation. Last but not the least, we thank each and every one of you for partaking this celebration of women. We hope this year is filled with much happiness and success for each one of you, and we look forward for your ongoing contribution and achievement to help make us a difference in this world. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
I'm going to leave. Okay. How are you, Aisha?
قل هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون إنما يتذكر أولو الألباب.
Academia Library rises to the call to produce knowledge, spread ideas, and generate discourse with a new multimedia production studio. The new Academia Studio will offer book reviews of classical and relevant texts, The Youth Breeze platform gets youth engaging in innovative and contemporary ideas. The Ladies' Terrace offers a special platform for women, foregrounding relevant social issues. Webinars that enable open public engagement locally and from remote parts of the world. Converse Academia focuses on relevant issues of public interest. For a nominal fee, the Academia Library Studio is a resource available to local community organizations. For bookings, contact us on 021 300 5572 or 062 730 7068. In pursuit of empowerment through knowledge for all, Academia Library Multimedia Studio.